Well, it's 2025. Can you believe it's here? I know, it just kind of snuck up on us, didn't it? Welcome to Move Daily Talks. I'm Tracy Steen, and today I want to talk to you about 6 healthy habits that I'm dialing in for this new year. And I went through a bunch of habits that I have or that I want to have, that I want to dial in. And I sort of dwindled it down to 6 really important things that I think are not only going to optimize my health, but just help me thrive in the things that I want to do in my life. So, in building my business, in staying fit and healthy, in having flourishing relationships, like all of those things are really important to me. So, I thought, okay, think about the end goal, what you really, really want in your life, and then begin to reverse engineer those micro processes, those daily drip, drip, drip micro habits that will help you get there. If you've followed me for some time, you know this already. My favorite quote of all time is from Ovid, and he says, "Dripping water on the stone hollows it out not through force, but through persistence." And that's what I want in 2025. I want to be persistent. I want to be consistent with my micro habits. And so I'm going to start by talking about the thing that you probably know me for, and that is fitness. So building strength and staying mobile, that is the number one habit. And we know from listening to multiple other people's podcasts, reading research, that fitness, exercise really is such a core foundation of health and wellness. Like it's going to keep us strong. It is going to keep our lungs and heart healthy. It's going to keep those muscles from atrophying as we age. It's going to then keep us from falling and possibly fracturing a bone. So strength training is just so crucial as we age. Of course, after the age of 40, 50, we begin to lose that lean muscle tissue and we can develop what's called sarcopenia, which is the loss of lean muscle tissue. It's literally translated as the loss of flesh in the Greek. And that's happening. So whether you want to admit it or not, it's definitely happening as you age. And so to mitigate that loss, to offset that loss, we need to dial it in even more. And that means possibly a nice structured plan, right? That means making sure that you have your nutrition dialed in, which I will talk about next. But back to the fitness, yes, the strength training is going to be something that is going to be at the top of my list this year. It has been for years and years, and I feel like I'm quite fortunate that way. I got into the weight training game about 25 years ago. And you know what they say about compound interest over time? You know, when you make early deposits into things like your bone health and bone density, into your muscle mass, it's going to serve you better as you age. And that does not mean you cannot change things if you've done none of that in early in your life, right? You can always make a change. You can always make a difference in your muscle, okay? And getting stronger in your bones as well. That Lift More study out of Australia has proven that even subjects with osteoporosis, when they introduce strength training, they increase their geometric properties in their bones and increase their strength and became stronger and less susceptible to fracture. So yeah, take a look at that study. I'll try to link that in the show notes below because that was substantial. That was encouraging, I thought. I looked at that and went, well, no one has an excuse now. Because I think sometimes we think, well, it's just too late for me. Like I didn't start early enough. And so ergo, now that's it. I'm done. But it's not true. We can start anytime. And what's actually quite interesting is if you've never done any exercise and then you start later in life, you'll probably see some good adaptations right off the hop. The muscles will go, hello, welcome to the party. Thanks for showing up. And they'll actually adapt to the load quite quickly and show some improvement quite quickly. This is important because that can actually build self-efficacy. This is the belief that change is possible, right? And when we believe change is possible, we commit more time to the task. And when we commit more time to the task, we see more change. It's a wonderful little cycle there. So strength training has got to be at the top of the list. It's got to be crucial. So, and not only increasing in lean muscle tissue, but also in strength. All right. I'm sure so many of you have listened to Dr. Peter Attia talk about things like the farmer's carry. like a dead hang, like lifting heavy weights, right? So these are things that can really improve our strength quotient, because that begins to diminish substantially as we age as well. We stop moving heavy loads, we stop lifting heavy things. And strength really does come from moving, like the stimulus is moving heavy objects, right? So you definitely, or holding heavy objects in your hands for a long period of time so that those muscle fibers, recruit and adapt to the load. So strength and muscle, those are two things that I think are really, really important as we age. And I hope that you're dialing them in. And if you need help, of course, we've got that at Move Daily Fitness, and especially in our membership, where we offer structured schedules and programming to help you do just that. I think also in that, knowing your numbers and your baseline is really important. So have you had a DEXA scan? Is this something that you have been able to partake in? It costs, like in Canada here, you have to out of pocket do it. I'm not sure if that's for everyone. Perhaps if you're over 65, you might be eligible to receive that. I'm not sure. You'll have to check your insurance. But I know here in Kelowna, we have a DEXA scan in the Walmart. There's a medical center right in Walmart. And I actually visited with the doctor there, Dr. Bailey, and did a DEXA scan with him about 2 years ago. And I was pleasantly surprised by my numbers. So not only do you find out what your bone density, where that lies in terms of your Z score and your T score. Okay, I'll explain that in a second. But you can also see where your body fat is, where your visceral fat amount is. That's the fat that's around our vital organs. And it's really important to know your numbers there. And ensure that that is at a lower percentage, because that could mean harm to your organs, which could ultimately mean harm to your health. Back to the T score and Z score. So this was something that I learned. I didn't know. But yes, when you get a DEXA scan, they'll give you those two scores, and your T score is your bone density compared to the ultimate bone density at the age of 20 to 30. So it compares you to like the ultimate specimen basically, and says, okay, where are you at in terms of your density compared to the ultimate? And then your Z score is you compared to someone that's exactly like you, your age, female, so exactly who you are. It's like comparing you to one of your neighbors, like, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? And you get to see where you are in comparison to them. So I think that's really great to know, right? And because when you know that, then you can work on different things. And for me, I'm doing things and continually doing things like heavy resistance training, of course, where it puts that mechanical tension on the muscle, which pulls on the bone. So that's how you stimulate those osteoblasts within the bone. Jumping. So jumping protocols. I had Dr. Stuart Phillips on last year, and he said, even like 20 jumps a day, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just that impact exercise can really help to stave off the loss of bone mineral density. And then doing different actions as well, right? So we talk about diagonal jump training sometimes in our membership. And when we have different actions where we're going diagonal, front, back, laterally, and we have these different types of movements, that's really good for our bone geometry. This is why I know when I had the Professor Phil Chilibeck on the podcast, he said, this is why gymnastics is such a great sport, because you have all of these angles, all of this diagonal jumping, hopping, lifting, pressing, pushing. And now as a senior, I'm not necessarily going in, I'm not a senior, but you know what I mean. As an older person, I'm not necessarily going back into gymnastics, but I'm doing things like racket sports, lifting weights, like even pickleball, where you have to go into multiple different angles and you have to have that brain hand-eye coordination. And the feet have to jut to the left and the right and back and forth. Like all of that is unreal for the body. So keep doing that. And if you're not doing that, sign up for a league this summer. Pickleball is so popular now, which is awesome. Of course, you probably have heard that one of the blue zones, which is one of the zones in the world, there are 7, and it's one of the zones down in Loma Linda, California, that has the highest percentage of centenarians. And one of the things they do as a community is play pickleball. So I think it's so fun. I do it with my friends and my family, and we really enjoy that. So getting that DEXA scan, knowing your baseline, having a good program set forth, and just realizing you got to lift weights. You can't stop, and you got to, if you're not started, you got to start. Okay? Okay. Habit number 2. Okay. Prioritizing protein and fiber. These are the 2 nutrients that I am making sure that I have in my diet. Why is that so important? Well, protein, let's talk about that one first. It's the building block of muscle. So it's going to be the macronutrient that goes into the muscle to help rebuild and repair it. It's super important that we get that adequate amount. You know, the RDA has had such a low percentage, typically speaking. It's been way lower than necessary in order to build lean muscle, and especially as you age. So we say that anywhere between that 1.6 and 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or if you're in pounds, you're translating that anywhere between 0.8 and 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. So for me, for this body, that means I'm getting anywhere between that 96 and 126 grams of protein per day. So you can easily calculate that out given the equation that I just gave you. And then what you want to do is take that protein and divide it as evenly as you can throughout your day. So those are the keys. So get the adequate amount, divide it evenly throughout the day. And if you can get one around a workout, then that's great, but it's not as necessary as we once thought. Yes, if you're an athlete and your margins are really thin and you're going for 1 second increase or 1 pound increase, then yeah, you want to optimize everything you can. But for the average person, it's okay just to split it evenly throughout your day. So why do we have to increase protein as we age? Well, we develop what's called anabolic resistance. So think of your body, your muscles like a sponge. When you're 20 and 30, that sponge is very young and fresh and absorbent. And the food that you feed it and the resistance training that you give it, that stimuli goes into the muscles and the adaptation is lovely and you build muscle and it's easy and it's fresh and young and new and all of those good things. As you age, though, think of a dried up sponge. Think of a crusty old sponge. No, it's not that bad, but it does become less absorbent. So, when you try to wipe something up from the counter with a dried old sponge, it's not absorbent. It doesn't do it as well. So you have to really have better stimuli. So you have to have a little bit more resistance training than we had to have when we were younger, a little bit more protein than we had to have when we were younger for that same result. So that's called anabolic resistance. It's important to understand that that's why we want to increase protein and why we really want to be consistent with our resistance training, because that's what's going to give us the results that we want. Now on to fiber. This is a lovely micronutrient as well, and one that if I don't have it in my day-to-day, my body is not happy at all. I traveled to Europe in this fall here, and the eating part for me was honestly horrendous. I mean, there's good food in places, but it just was not the right macronutrients. It wasn't adequate amount of protein. There wasn't enough fiber in the foods that I was able to get. I mean, Italy's pizza is unreal, but where is the fiber in that? So I had a tough time and my body paid the price. So for me to optimize gut health, and for you to optimize gut health, fiber is the key to that. That's what's going into our intestines, our lower intestine, and feeding the gut microbiome. I've got lots of podcasts where we talk about gut health, so I won't dive deeper into that today. But even Dr. Emily Leeming was on the podcast, and she talked all about just the importance of getting just a huge variety of vegetables, fruits into your diet, which can help increase that fiber amount. Whole grains, nuts, seeds, there's lots to choose from. But for me, aiming towards 25 grams a day for women, at least 25 to 30. For men, anywhere from 30 to 35 or 40 grams a day is where you want to go. As always, with something like that, if you're new to it, you want to start light and work your way up. Same with resistance training. but start with a small amount. Let your body adjust over time, over days, over weeks, and try to aim toward that 25 grams for women. The third habit is to prioritize recovery and stress management. Well, am I doing this well? I think I prioritize recovery well. A lot of people ask me, do you work out all of the time? Do you ever take a rest day? Oh, yeah, honey, I take rest days. Believe me. I know there's some people in our Move Daily Hustle Facebook group who often will do multiple workouts a day. That is not me. That has never been me. Yeah, so I definitely like to take rest days when I need it. And we were just talking about this in the membership too. Some days you wake up and you might have something quite strenuous scheduled for your workout, but you just can't rally. You just don't feel like it. And I think it's so important to listen to the body in days like that and save your energy for when it's optimal, because then you'll get optimal gains from that workout, right? So swap in something that's a little lighter, a little easier, a little bit more soothing, maybe a yoga class, maybe it's going for a long walk or hike instead of doing the strenuous workout. I think that's important. I definitely pay attention to my body. And as a lot of you know, I'll film beginner workouts. For me, those are very easy. I have been working out for 25 years. So for me to film something like that feels like a recovery workout. It feels like some active rest, like I'm moving my body, like I'm doing something, but I'm not stressing the body. And I think that's really important. Another thing that I really want to focus on, and I think that is so important, is that looking at our stressors. And again, I talked to some of the gals in the membership recently, and one said that she's got a lot of stress at work. And so I asked her, is it stress that can be eliminated, or is this a stressor that needs to be worked with and managed internally? So this is something that I think is so important and that I want to work on, is my own reactivity to things, right? Like a scenario will come up. Someone will make a comment, to me, or send an email, or be upset or angry about something. And if I allow that to trigger my vulnerable parts, which is easy for me to do, I can get very reactive and I can get very stressed by that reaction, right? You can feel it palpably in your body. Your cortisol starts to surge, your stress starts to heighten, your palms start to sweat, your stomach starts to turn. And then it can become this snowball effect of the next email or the next comment or the next person that doesn't agree with you, or, so it really is, in my mind, about looking at yourself and saying, how do I work with this reactive part to myself, or just work with my parts, right? Dr. Richard Schwartz has written the book called No Bad Parts. And it's all about internal family systems, this therapy, where really we are multiple parts, right? We are our wise self. That's the true voice from within, that deep wise self within us. But then we are also, the goofy class clown part, or we're the angry part, or we're the anxious part, the depressed part. So we develop parts in our childhood to protect us from life, to keep us connected with those that we love, or a version of connection that, we think is going to keep us safe. And those develop over time, and they can come into our adult life and really wreak havoc, right? So one of the things I want to do more of is recognize those parts, be curious, compassionate towards those parts, but then also allow that wise self to have more of a voice more often. And I've done a lot of work on this. Boy, oh boy. If you listen to my podcast with Peg Peters, we talked about this psilocybin medicine journey, and they use it in therapeutic practice and counseling. And I've done that. I've gone on a journey like that. And it was unreal what I learned about myself and how I will forsake authenticity for the sake of attachment. And because I fear losing attachment to people, right? And so what happens though is that my authentic parts then just hide, right? They just bury their head in the sand, and then I'm not my true real self. And so for me to begin to say, okay, I'm scared to be authentic because I fear losing attachment. But if I don't, then I fear losing myself. And so it's a work in progress, but I definitely think that prioritizing that stress management and looking deeper within, knowing thyself is a really great habit to dial in for 2025. Okay, habit number 4. This is just the habit of moving daily, and not exercise necessarily, not structured exercise necessarily, but moving your body. And as we age, of course, we do slow down. That is a given. There's been studies that show that age-related slowing down is a thing, and we just stop moving as much, stop being as spontaneous. And so that's something that before I lay my head on the pillow at the end of the night, I want to ask myself, what have you done to move daily? And this is actually why I named my company Move Daily, because I wanted people, including myself, to take steps forward in their fitness, in their wellness, and in their nutrition every single day. And you don't necessarily have to do something in each category, but so long as you're moving forward, as you're taking a step daily in those 3 elements, you are moving the needle toward better health, right? You are moving toward your goal a little bit more. And so part of what that looks like for me is incorporating things like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is daily movement, right? This is gardening. This is laundry. This is climbing up and down stairs instead of taking the escalator. This is going for walks. This is vacuuming. This is dusting. This is all of those movements, standing desk, standing call meeting. It's just being more active and not sitting as much. You've heard that adage, sitting is the new smoking. I got a standing desk a number of years ago, and it was a game changer for me. Absolute game changer. And you think you're not burning a lot of additional calories by standing versus sitting, but you definitely burn more standing than sitting in a day, right? So even if you could stand 2 to 3, 3 to 4 hours out of your 8-hour workday, you're going to increase that caloric expenditure. And every single day that adds up, right? So 5 days a week, if you're working 5 days a week, that could add up to an additional 500 calories burned just by standing. And not that burning calories is the be all end all, but as we age, our whole metabolic rate begins to slow. And this is part and parcel because of menopause. It's part and parcel because we lose lean muscle tissue, which is why it's so important to increase it. Right? Muscle is metabolic. We burn more calories at rest when we have an increase in muscle in our body. So when we stop moving, it's easier to gain weight and it's easier to become sedentary as well. So moving your body, doing something daily in terms of non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And I've got 2 little tips for you that you can add when you're thinking about how do I do something daily. I heard this one from Dr. Rhonda Patrick called VILPA, Vigorous Intermittent Lifestyle Physical Activity. That's what it stands for. And that's doing all of your daily activities that you would normally do, but with vigor. So you're walking up the stairs, now you're sprinting up the stairs. You're going from your car to the grocery store. Now you're briskly walking or quickly walking instead of lollygagging. So it's doing all of those activities, but with more vigor. The second one is exercise snacks. And this is so simple. This is something that you can add. You can set a little timer on your phone to remind you to stand up, do 20 squats here throughout the day, do 5 minutes of stairs, go outside and walk around the building. There's just a lot of things that you can do. Do 10 push-ups, do 30 jumping jacks. Those little intermittent snacks of exercise increase blood flow, they increase oxygen, they make us more alert, they increase calorie burn. It's just so beneficial. So adding those to your day can help you move your body in 2025. My 5th habit is to continue to build community and connection. I think friendships are so important. And this year has been a super busy one for me. There's been moments where I've thought I need to really reach out to my friends and connect. And then I do it, but I haven't been super consistent with that. And I'm sad about that. I'm paying the price for not doing that. And I really want to ensure that that becomes a top priority. I feel like we do that well in our communities online. but there is something about having that face-to-face connection, right? For me anyway. And one of the things that we've done as friends up in my neighborhood here is definitely that walk and talk, which is brilliant because it's a twofer. It's a 2-for-1. You get to exercise or get your daily steps in, and you get to have connection and communication and friendship. So for me, having those things come to the forefront and recognize once again the crucialness of having these people in my life and really working on it from my end as well. That's going to be a new habit for me that I need to dial in 2025. And I know a lot of us live in remote areas. Maybe we don't have a lot of friends in our area that we can count on, that we can connect with. Or maybe we have interests in fitness and wellness, but none of our family or friends are leaning in that way. And I think this is where an online community can really shine. And I have seen our membership just thrive in that area as well. Like I've seen people become friends, and then I see them commenting on each other's Facebook aside from our group because they've become friends within our group. So because you have connections, you have similar interests, you've got a similar drive towards health and wellness. So you've got a lot in common. And then you've got support, right? People will share their stories, they'll share their experiences, their struggles, and they feel heard, which is what we all want in life. So definitely focus on that community, that connections, and work on those in 2025. And my final habit that I want to work on, that I think we should all work on as 2025 unfolds, is that we keep learning and growing. Knowledge is power. And I think staying curious about your own health, one of the biggest things that I have found to be a challenge in 2024 was the whole conversation on menopause and hormones. Holy Hannah. I have not wanted to talk about that at all because it's just a matzo ball, isn't it? Like I'll go into a bunch of different online forums and groups, Instagram pages, and I just see division because everyone has a different experience, which means everyone has a different opinion on what should be done with this. And yet, I don't want to stop being an advocate for myself, and I don't want to stop learning. So I know people will ask me, what's your take on hormone therapy? And I'm like, I'm still deciding. I'm still learning. And I'll interview guests and take what knowledge I can from them. Right. And I've had people on both sides of the camp. So it's good, I think, to have those differing opinions because it pushes against my own opinions and it makes me be a critical thinker, which I think is so important. And then we can take what we're learning once we've landed on some of these issues and help others who are not quite at the same level as us yet, who are just entering maybe menopause or who are just new to fitness or just new to eating healthy. And we can help inspire and encourage others along their journey as well. Well, those are my 6 habits that I am going to be dialing in 2025. I would love to hear what you are making a priority. Please let me know in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go into the comment section. If you're listening on a podcast, whether Spotify or Apple, you can always leave a comment there as well. I'd love to hear what you're working on, what you're dialing in, what's a priority to you. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm looking forward to 2025. I've already got a lot of awesome guests lined up, and we're really looking forward to learning more. But for now, go move daily in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition, and I'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.